Thank you very much for coming. This is an artist, José Manuel. He's coming from Spain. He's the brother of Patricia, so sure that you know Patricia. And he is professor, he's a teacher, and also is an artist. And the field in which he is working is kinetic art. So sure that all of you are familiar with the word kinetic art. Anyone can explain what is the meaning of kinetic art? Anyone?
An art in which there is a movement.
Exactly. So now he will explain how he works with kinetic art. And now introduce yourself to the rest. Please.
Thank you for introducing me. Good morning to everyone. It's really nice to be here this morning with all of you. I'm very happy to be able to do this presentation with you here in Oman. It's the first time I'm here in the country, and for the last 2 days I was visiting many different places, and I'm impressed about the beauty of this country and how kind and nice the people can be. I didn't have a previous idea about Oman because apart from my sister's indications, I didn't know anything about Oman, but I'm really interested about your country, about knowing more things about your culture, and maybe about Arabic language. It's quite difficult, just because the calligraphy is completely different, but it's beautiful. Yesterday I went to the mosque to enjoy the beauty of that massive building, and it was really overwhelming. Okay. Overwhelming about the beauty of the dome, of the geometry involved in that massive structure, and I could see then some kind of connection between Islamic art and my art, my style, which is more or less abstraction and geometry and kinetic. My name is José Manuel González. He introduced me. I'm from Spain. I live in a very beautiful city called Malaga, in the south of my country. I don't know if you know where Spain is in Europe. It's one of the biggest countries in Europe in the south. And I live in the Mediterranean Sea, in a city called Malaga. It's a beautiful place to visit if you have the chance. In terms of culture and art, now Malaga is one of the most reputed cities in my country. I don't know if you hear about Pablo Picasso. I suppose that you know about this Spanish artist, and he was born in Malaga, in the city where I developed my art and my job. We have a museum, a Picasso museum. We have a George Pompidou museum there. We have a Russian art museum. We have many different museums in Malaga. So if you love contemporary art in general, Malaga is a good place to go. I work in a secondary school as an art teacher, a fine art teacher. So in the morning I usually spend my time teaching art with the teenagers, and I try to change their minds about art, because Spain in general is a very conservative country. So just because I love contemporary art, I try to change their vision about how art should be in terms of modernity. So that's the school where I work in the morning, and in the afternoon I work in a private institution called Icono Instituto de Investigación Cultural. Basically, translating the name would be something like Cultural Research Institute. It's basically like a foundation supported by a private company. It's a company developing projects about light art, publicity, marketing, and stuff like that. And I receive a grant 6 months ago when I arrived to Malaga to live there, and I was lucky enough to be considered for this grant, and I'm enjoying this grant right now in Malaga, which means that I have a massive space to develop my artwork, to make some research about electronics and technology, and I feel glad for that, because in my country it's not very common to be able to receive this kind of support, especially from a private company. So I had to mention this just because I'm very, thankful about this effort coming from a private company in the country, which is a little bit weird. Well, if I have to talk about myself, basically I consider myself a maker, not just an artist. I don't know if you hear about that concept. You hear about the maker movement? No? Okay. No problem, I can explain what it means. To be a maker today means something like, this is a Wikipedia, what do you say? Wikipedia concept, a Wikipedia explanation about the maker movement, or the meaning of being a maker. Maker culture emphasizes informal network, peer-led and shared learning motivated by fun and self-fulfillment. Well, sounds a bit complicated, but basically, a maker is someone who loves technology and someone who loves the idea of do it yourself. It means that you want to learn how to fix things, you want to learn how to make things, and all of these involves using or working with technological tools. I don't know if you hear about, hello, welcome to the set. I don't know if you hear about 3D printing. Recently, Barack Obama in the States was very concerned about how technology is changing our lives, and he thought that in the secondary school it's very important to have a workshop to develop projects using 3D printers. A 3D printer is a machine to print in 3D. Basically, that's what it is. And for many people, thinkers about technology, is this kind of technology is going to change the world. It's already changing the world. So being a maker means using 3D printers, using electronics and machines to make your own stuff. Think about your smartphones. You have a smartphone, as I do. I don't know where mine is, but anyway, when you think about your smartphone, think about being able to create your own smartphone. It sounds a bit weird, because you usually buy that stuff in the shop. But think about you being able to create your own smartphone. It sounds a little bit bizarre, but it's real, it's possible. Why? Because there are many makers all over the world developing projects based on technology and making people to be able to make that kind of stuff. So I consider myself a maker, and a maker is someone who lives in an environment like this. This is myself in my workshop. It's not very big, but it's big enough to develop my ideas, to convert my ideas in something material. And as you can see, it looks like more like a workshop more than the typical artist's atelier. So it's like working with mechanics, different kind of tools, and basically electronics and technology, programming, basically. So this movement is based on a concept called Creative Commons. I don't know if you know what a copyright license is. Think about copyright. When you buy a CD, the shop, you are paying for copyright. And copyright is the right of the artist to keep that knowledge, the music, the video, the film, in his hands, in his pocket for a period of time. In Spain, it's 50 years. If you write a book, for example, you keep the copyright, which means that you can make money from your book for a period of time, basically 50 years. And after that, the copyright is over, and everyone can make copies of that. So you can copy CD, you can copy book, you can enjoy that piece of culture, that piece of art, that piece of music. And there is a very important world movement called Creative Commons, which is exactly the opposite. Creative Commons means that you don't have to pay for the copyright, you don't have to pay for the patent, the knowledge is shared. So it means that people are making stuff, people are designing things, people are thinking things, and they want to share. They don't ask for money for that knowledge. They share the knowledge. And it means that everyone can learn, everyone can develop similar projects. So the knowledge is universal, it's for everyone. It's not a question of money, it's not a question of the level of development of a country. So that's a very cool thing in my point of view. So you can search internet, you can learn more about Creative Commons movement. Another important concept about being a maker is the concept of open source. Think about software. I know you work with software. I don't know what kind of software, but think about Photoshop. When you're using Photoshop in your computer, you have to pay a license. You have to pay for that piece of programming designed by a company, usually a company in the States. And usually the license is very expensive. And if you don't have the money to pay for that piece of programming, you cannot use that software in your computer. So you need a different option because you don't have the money. So it's like that piece of software is only for rich people. It's only for people with resources. But the rest of the world should be able to create stuff, even if they have not money to pay for it. So there is another movement called open source movement, which is more or less a group of people all over the world creating software for free. So the idea is you can use my software, you can make it better if you're a programmer, you can you can send me some kind of feedback to make it better. So, but you need to use it to know if it's good, if it's not good, if there is something wrong, if there is a bug, or something inside the software to make it better. And finally, everyone can use it, and the software could be even better than the one you had to pay for. So think about the free option, for example, GIMP. I don't know if you hear about GIMP, another software, quite similar to Photoshop, and is for free. And why? How is it possible that that piece of software, good software, is for free? Because many people are developing that software together, and they are not asking for money. They are asking for, enjoyment, fulfillment, those concepts I told you before. So, and the third leg of this table is the copyleft concept. It's the opposite of to copyright. So you don't have to pay for this, you can use my stuff, you can copy my stuff, and you can make it better. So many of my projects, the projects I'm going to show you, are copyleft. So it means that you can go to my website and you can try yourself. You can try your own project based on mine, and I'm not going to charge you. But it's a little bit like, I don't know if you are going to understand what I mean, but it's like being a communist in terms of the opposite of capitalism. Capitalism is I have copyright, you have to pay for my ideas, you have to pay for my creations. I'm not going to share anything. Everything is for money. Everyone is going to charge you for whatever they do, whatever they make. And this is exactly the opposite. We can share. So it's not a question of money, it's a question of enjoyment. It's a question of having fun together. And in my case, my personal experience, I feel so happy when someone from India, or someone from the States, or someone from Russia send me an email telling me, hey guy, that project you developed and you downloaded in your blog is so cool. I'm going to try something quite similar in Moscow, based on yours. It sounds like great. that's cool. You know, there is some kind of link between people from all over the world just because we share something and we have common interests and similar ideas, and that's a very, very nice feeling. So I recommend you to try something like that, to have that feeling, that kind of link or connection with the rest of the world in terms of knowledge and art. So if I have to talk about not just what I am, what I do, what I make in that workshop I show you in that picture, I consider myself a kinetic artist. Kinetic and electronic, because both things are connected in the kind of art I develop nowadays. So I don't know if you see, I changed the color of both words, kinetic and electronics, to explain the meaning of kinetic art and electronic art, and then I'm going to show you how I link both in my artwork. So kinetic art, based on Wikipedia, is art from any medium that contains movement perceivable by the viewer or depends on motion for its effect. So there are two different kinds of kinetic art. The one which moves itself using engines, gears, motors, electricity or wind or whatever, and the kinetic art based on the movement of the spectator. Think about yourself enjoying a piece of art. You move around the sculpture, you move in front of the painting. That movement coming from the spectator creates the movement in the piece of art. So there are two kinds of kinetic art, and I try to develop my projects based on those different concepts. And if I have to explain what it means, nowadays, for example, one of the most famous kinetic artists is one of my favorite artists, indeed. Alexander Cadell. I don't know if you hear about this American sculptor. Well, it's quite popular in all over the world. And he developed this kind of sculpture based on the power of the breeze or the wind. You can blow in front of these pieces and they move like a mobile, you know, that kind of decoration we usually have in the baby rooms, you know, to keep the baby quiet and silent. And so this is an artist who creates stuff based on the power of the wind. You know, using the wind to move the sculptures. It's a very nice kind of kinetic art, and I love his work. Even if my personal artwork is not similar to his artwork. Another artist, to explain what kinetic art means, is Jan Tingley. It's a guy from Switzerland. He developed his career in France. If you go to the Georges Pompidou Museum, this massive sculpture is in the lobby. It's quite spectacular because now you can see all those gears and its machinery, and it's quite bizarre. But when it's in motion, it has a sensor, so everyone goes inside the museum and you are in front of the machine starts moving, making noises, and it's something crazy. But at the same time, it's hypnotic. So it's a question of movement. When we talk about kinetic art, it's a question of movement. So just to let you know, two different massive examples about kinetic art. So yeah, you have a question?
Is it a type of installation?
Yeah, exactly. There's some sculpture, installation. You can say both. Yeah, you can.
Assemblage maybe?
Pardon?
Assemblage.
Yeah.
Assemblage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you can say that. Of course. Yeah. It's like a massive collage with junk, you know.
Yes.
But it moves because there are electric motors that you can see here.
Yeah.
All those gears move all those wheels, you know, in a kind of
So it's kind of
a strange structure. Pardon?
It's kinetic and electric at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, usually kinetic involves you have to use some kind of power.
Yeah.
Even if it's the wind or the sun or the electricity.
Should be some energy.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So these artists are more or less the masters, both of my masters. So that's about kinetic. And what about electronic art? According to the Wikipedia, electronic art is a form of art that makes use of electronic media, or more broadly, refers to technology and or electronic media. So it means that an electronic artist is someone using technology, electronic technology, or using, for example, programming. So nowadays there are many artists using programming software to create stuff, or using electronics. I consider myself more than anything an electronic artist, because I use hardware, design by myself, created with my hands, but at the same time, to make it work, I need software, because most of the things I work with need some kind of code inside to do whatever I want it to do. So I am a kinetic artist and an electronic artist, and both things are together in most of my pieces of art. And all of them involve some kind of modern technology called Arduino. I don't know if you hear about this platform, Arduino. Well, I can tell you about a little bit broadly later, the second part of the presentation, because I brought from Spain some examples to let you know what Arduino is. Arduino is a trademark nowadays, but it wasn't from the very beginning. It's an electronic platform, basically, to let you know what it is. It's a PCB, prototyping, controlling board, which is basically, you can see it looks like an electronic board with components and electronic stuff connected with pins and many different things. You can see. And basically, this is the beginning of the maker movement in terms of electronics. With this platform, which is open source, which is something you don't have to pay for the patent, you can make it yourself, buying the components and to create stuff. With this platform, many people are creating all over the world things like 3D printers, things like smartphones, things like personal computers, or when you think about domotic houses, think about domotic. Maybe you hear about domotic here in this design college. Domotic is that science which involves creating stuff to make automatic all the things in a house. Think about chandelier, think about a curtain, think about a window, think about the AC in your house, think about all the electronic stuff in your home. Think about being able to control all of that stuff using your smartphone. You need controllers. You need some kind of electronic thing to let know that the AC, it has to be on in 5 minutes, because I'm going to be at home and I want the room cool when I arrive. But you need something like this. But before Arduino was invented, this platform was copyrighted. You had to pay a patent for this. So it was a problem for people with no money to create the stuff. The only way to become an engineer, to become a maker, was having a lot of money. So nowadays, because of Arduino, you can make the stuff just the engineers could do 10 years ago by yourself for just a few bucks. This platform, for example, you want to buy one, it's no more than 10 euros, which is more or less in reals, I don't know, five more or less. That's quite cheap for a microcontroller, which is a tiny, it's like a tiny computer to make stuff. I'm going to show you what kind of stuff you can create with this. I'm going to show you a tiny documentary produced by a Spaniard, explaining what Arduino means, what the Arduino movement means, all over the world. So all my art is based on using this platform and controlling things like electric motors, sensors, lights, LED lights, and stuff like that. So it's quite interesting, and I feel proud because the inventor of this platform is a Spaniard, someone called David Cuartieres. Now he's a professor in the Malmo University, in the technology department. And obviously this platform is so popular all over the world that now it's very, very famous. And this idea became a massive company, and they are selling stuff all over the world. But at the same time, you don't want to pay for that. You can download all the plans and all the eagle files in their website, and you can do it yourself. So you don't have to pay for their ideas. You don't have to pay for their knowledge. They're sharing the knowledge. But you want to buy mine, my platform, designed by myself and created in my factory. Okay, you can pay a very, very, very low price, which makes the technology more democratic.
Affordable.
Affordable, exactly, yeah. So later I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna play the Arduino documentary to let you know what it means in a better way. And well, I'm gonna explain my work. I suppose that you want to see my stuff. So you know all the technical details about how I work. And basically my work, I can see my work in three different aspects, or three different areas. I work in the area of light art, which is a very massive movement nowadays because of the LED technology. You hear about LEDs. I could see here in Muscat, many places have those massive light panels now in the facade with tiny, tiny, tiny bulbs. Those tiny bulbs are LEDs. These are kind of very, very avant-garde technology light, because consume just a very low rate of voltage, and they are really cheap to fabricate. And it's very easy to use. So I can see my work in the area of light art, in the area of electronics, controlling light or controlling gears, motors and stuff like that needs obviously a very deep knowledge of electronics and motion, kinetic motion. Wow. I'm going to start talking about light art. And the best way to know what I mean when I'm talking about light art is showing one of my last pieces. I finished this light sculpture, light painting recently, so I'm going to show you, and you can think about what I'm trying to say. Well, as you can see, this is a piece of light art. I use some kind of specific LEDs. I can show you later if you're interested in. And to control all those colors, because I use LED strips, it's like a cord with many different LEDs. To control all of those LEDs, I need the Arduino. So the Arduino is like the brain of this piece of art. So the Arduino is like the computer which tells every LED in this sculpture what they have to do. Well, they have to fade the color, the brightness, and the rhythm, the speed, and all that stuff. So I have to create the hardware, which is more or less the sculpture. Sculpture is different pieces of wood with the LEDs surrounding all the shapes. And to control all those LEDs, I need to create some piece of code. And I have to download that code inside this controller to control the lights. So this is just like a sculpture. But think about you being able to control those lights according to the music, for example. It would be something cool to have in a discotheque. Think about a pub or a place, you know, to have fun, to dance with your friends. And the lights change the color according to the rhythm of the music. It sounds a little bit difficult or complicated. It's so easy using Arduino. The only thing you need is a microphone. And the microphone, you can use a microphone from an old telephone, one of those telephones you can find in a junkland. You go there, do you have an old telephone? Yeah, give me one. And you take the microphone inside and you connect the microphone to the Arduino. And then you can control the music. And according to the music, you can tell all the LEDs in the sculpture. You have to change the red, you have to be green, and you have to blink or whatever you want. That's the code. The code is the order, you know, the commando. So you need to know a little bit of electronics, you need to know a little bit of LED technology, you need to know a little bit of coding. But it's quite easy because many people are creating stuff on the internet. And when you don't understand how to make something, you ask somebody else. And you are going to find someone to help you. That's for sure. Nowadays, one of my best friends in terms of technology is someone from Texas, someone I never met. But we have a very, very close relationship because I discovered his artwork and I sent him an email asking for, how can you make that stuff, man? That's bloody incredible. I would love to be able to make something similar. And he sent me an email, don't worry, man, I have this website, you can see all my stuff, I explain how I make it, so do it yourself. That's generosity. That's some kind of very modern kindness. And I love that. And now we are sharing things all the time because we are working with the same technology. So if I learn something he doesn't know, I try to share with him. So, hey, I discovered this thing, it's going to make it better. Maybe for the next project this will be something interesting to work with. And, you know, both of us are gaining. Both of us are, you know, increasing our knowledge and having some kind of human connection, you know? So, this is one of my pieces of artwork based on light art. This is another one called Mondrian Creator. I don't know if you hear about the artist Pierre Mondrian. He's someone from Netherlands. He was a very, very interesting, you can describe his art like Cubism, but this is the radical version of Cubism, the avant-garde movement invented by Pablo Picasso. And maybe if I show you one of his paintings, you can remember. This is one of his characteristics, paintings, squares, right angles, flat colors, primary colors. Wow, I love this guy. So using light and electronics, I developed a project based on his art. I call this piece Mondrian Creator. And you're going to see why. I can show you the video and then I can explain how it works. basically, this is like a, I call these kind of things intellectual toys. The size of this device is tiny, like a toy, but the intellectual stuff behind the technology to make it work, you know, it's not for kids. It's very complicated in terms of coding. Basically, that's a tiny screen from an old Nokia. Do you remember those cell phones like shells?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those Nokia had a tiny TFT screen, like the one you have in your smartphone, but smaller. So I took those old screens from the Nokia, and I connect that screen to a smaller Arduino than this, and I tell the screen you have to create a different pattern with the Mondrian design, the Mondrian style, ad infinitum, creating some kind of random design, random composition. So every composition you see in this video is unique. So it's the first and the last time you're going to see that composition. So you can see how every time the code creates a different pattern, tells you the number, and it's the only time ever you're going to see that composition. I took this video, so you're lucky enough to be able to see that one, for example. But it's not going to happen again. Why? Because the code inside this tiny microcontroller works with numbers. And I tell the machine that never repeat the same pattern using randomness. So it's like if I'm not there to enjoy that pattern, it's going to be lost. So that's why I call this device intellectual toy, you know? So as you can see, it's not just a question of craft work, it's a question of knowing mathematics, knowing a little bit of code to
It's
create.
going to be like there's a template for the code.
Pardon?
There is a specific template that I can have from the internet.
I can show you later. The second part of my presentation is going to be trying to discover the Arduino world. So I can let you know how to start coding with Arduino. It's quite simple.
Right.
And well, I spent the last 5 years learning coding. So I have not a deep knowledge about coding using Arduino, but I know how it works. I understand the grammar of this coding, this kind of language, no? Electronic programming language. But you can learn yourself. You can do it one day or another.
So there is like certain rules that we can follow.
Exactly. Don't worry. I'm going to show you all of that later.
Because for us that we are not good
Yeah.
at these things.
Yeah, you can enjoy Arduino. Yeah, don't worry. So, well, and the third art piece I want to show you is just some kind of pleasure for your eyes. Another artist called Victor Vasarely, maybe you hear about him. I'm all the time making some kind of tribute to my masters. And Victor Vasarely is someone from Hungary, and a Hungarian who developed his artwork in France. He's quite famous in Europe, Victor Vasarely. He's quite famous in France, not just because he's a great artist, because he designed the Renault logo. You hear about that car brand, French car brand?
Yes.
It's not very typical here in Oman. You can see the American brands are more popular here. But in Europe, Renault is one of the most famous car brands. And the logo of this French car brand was designed by these artists. Well, and I tried to create something like a tribute to Victor Vasarely. Victor Vasarely was a geometrical artist. He was involved in some kind of avant-garde movement called optical art. And I love his stuff. And I try to add movement to his artwork. His artwork is flat, it's usually paint on canvas, oil on canvas, or acrylic on canvas. And I was thinking, well, maybe I can make something like Vasarely, but with movement, with some kind of mutation or transformation in itself. So this is my tribute to Victor Vasarely. The painting is changing, the colors are changing. The painting is like something alive. It's not something, static or dead like the photography. And I love bright colors for many reasons, but the most important reason why I love flat and bright primary colors is because I am a little bit colorblind. So I can see the colors as you do for genetic reasons. So the only way to be sure what kind of color I'm working with is using bright, flat, primary colors. So that's why sometimes my pieces are so radical in terms of how saturated the colors are. There is some kind of three-dimensional aspect about my paintings. I work with perspex, some kind of transparent plastic, and I paint on the perspex and I use LED lights. So I change the color of the light, and the color of the light changes the color of the paint. So that's three different examples of my light art. The second aspect of my stuff is electronics. And recently I finished a very interesting project based on electronics called Arduino. Arduino is a finding device. It's probably the first electronic sonic kaleidoscope open source in the world. I've been searching the internet for so long and I couldn't find anything like this. So I thought maybe I have my niche to start my own project. And because I love kaleidoscopes, I don't know if you hear about that kind of toy. It's basically three mirrors with transparent stuff inside. When you move the device, you can create symmetry and patterns. It's quite nice. And I love this stuff. So I decided to make, using Arduino, an electronic kaleidoscope. Usually a kaleidoscope is something with no technology involved. It's just mirrors and maybe glass and plastic stuff inside. So, and I just recently finished this project. And I developed all the stuff involved in this electronic device, the PCBs, the components, the design, the website, everything. So I create this thing in my computer, I send this information to a factory in China, they create the electronics, they send me the components, I sold all the components, and I create this thing. Yeah, it's you can see all the different components involved in this device. I call this a tiny art toy, like the one I showed you before. But in this case, the public, the one who has these components in his or her hands, has to create it. So it's not myself creating the piece of art, it's the public. The person who is interested in being a part of this idea, creating the stuff using those components. I give them all the instructions to, to make all the the thing to set all the different elements and stuff involved in this funny kaleidoscope. So when you receive one of these boxes, you have those components, and you set all the stuff. You have a kaleido. So you want to have further information about how it works, and the funny things you can see through the mirrors. You can go to the website I'm going to give you later. So this is my personal electronic kaleidoscope. And the funny thing about this is, when you think about the elements involved in this kaleidoscope, is I use a Nokia, a TFT screen. I use a sensor like the one you have in your smartphone. Think about the accelerometer. Accelerometer is the device you have in your cell phone to know when the screen is vertical or horizontal. When you are taking pictures, sometimes you show the picture, you have to move the screen because it's vertical, and the device knows when you move the screen to change the position of the picture. That's why you have in your smartphone you have an accelerometer with 3 different axes. Because it's the same accelerometer I have in my kaleidoscope. But I use it to let the kaleidoscope know the position of the device to control the images inside the mirrors and the sound, because the kaleidoscope creates some kind of funny music when you move it. So it's not just a visual device, it's a sound device. It's like a crazy, mad musical instrument. The only thing you have to do is move it, shake it, and you create funny music. So I invited you to visit my website, and you can see you can find further information about it. And when I have to explain what motion means in terms of my personal art work, I'm going to show you a couple of examples to understand what it means. For example, this one. Another tribute, in this case to Victor Ulik, another European artist. In this case, I don't work with light, I work with motion.
What is the material you're using for this?
Pardon?
What is the material you're using for this? What is your jigging?
It's, we call this kind of, it's a very specific kind of wood board called DM. It's easy to work with, and it's a good material, really good material. The texture of the material is good to use acrylic on. And I like that material to work with. Usually all of the boxes of my stuff are made using that kind of DM. So there are 9 different electric motors, stepper motors, like the ones you have in your print machine. Maybe you have print machine. Print machine usually use 2 different stepper motors. One to move the head printer, and another one to move the paper. So there are 2 different axes, and both of them need a different motor. So that kind of motor is the kind of motor you can see in those squares in motion. But the problem here is not the motion. The problem here is to coordinate all those movements. You can see the squares, how they set perfectly with all the different corners in that simple pattern. So this is one example of my art with motion. And the next one is a project I created with my friend Javier Belloso for